Welcome. My name is Lisa Batigi. I am the Library Media Specialist at Shawnee High School. I've had the privilege of introducing these two wonderful school librarians, teacher librarians at Norman High School. First, we have Martha Pangburn. Did I get right, Martha? And Chloe Summers, and they will be presenting a workshop for Get Your Google On using Google Apps in your school library.
Yeah, so this is Get Your Google On using Google Apps in your school library. We have a bit.ly here, but we also will have one at the end if you want access to this presentation later. So I'm Chloe Pesh, and this is Martha Pangburn. We're teacher librarians at Norman High School in Norman. And together we have a combined 26 years of experience, which is in fact longer than I've been alive. But we are excited to talk to you guys today about Google. So why Google? Google Workspace for Education empowers school communities with simple and flexible tools to better collaborate and manage classes and support safer learning environments. So we use Google for Education for literally everything, and we are about to show you how. So the tools that we're going to talk about today are the ones that we use most frequently. So we've got Forms and Sheets, Keep, Calendar, Slides, Docs, and Sites.
Okay, so we're going to start with Calendar. So we use Calendar to schedule our spaces and our time. So we're going to kind of talk through how we do that. We are responsible for scheduling our 2 library classrooms, as well as, of course, our time and availability, but we also schedule a space across from the library that's a flex space that's open for our teachers to use throughout the day. I also want to make a note to say that everyone who works in our library, so we have 2 librarians, a library secretary, we have a instructional coach, and a tech support person, and we all share our calendars with each other so that we all know where, what's going on and who's where, because when students come in, they kind of think we're all interchangeable. And so we want to be able to help students the best that we can. And so we share our calendar so that we all kind of know what's going on. So when we're scheduling classes in the library or in our flex space that we call the seminar room, we use the appointment slot feature on Google Calendar. So we're going to kind of talk through the steps of this if you're not familiar with the appointment slots. So when you're creating an event, you just click, on the calendar to create an event like you normally would, and it defaults to a regular event. So you would actually go and click appointment slots on the right-hand side of that little box, and then you're going to click more options at the bottom. And this is where you would give your appointment a title. You would set the specific times in the slot duration. So it defaults to 30-minute slots, but I always change it to a single slot because I'm scheduling like a whole class period. And then set as a repeating appointment. So this is really important. You want to definitely click on that where it says does not repeat. You're going to click on that and set it to repeat however you want it to repeat, whatever your schedule looks like. This will be a very important step because it will save a lot of time as you're creating these calendar appointments. And then you'll see on that screenshot that you can see on the slide, there's a link to the calendar's appointment page. And so that's the link that you would share with your teachers or whoever would be using the calendar to schedule appointments. So the way that we share that link with teachers is we have an appointment tab on our website. And so teachers can go there to schedule appointments. And the nice thing about having a website that they go to first is that we can, spell out any important information that we want to share with teachers about scheduling the space. So for example, it says that when you're scheduling the library classrooms, you also need to email me and Chloe so that we know what you're doing and we can work with you and support you the best way possible. Those kinds of things are on that page. And then we have our appointment calendar actually embedded on our website. So this is what teachers see when they go to that appointment calendar. So all of those gray boxes are available appointment slots. So when a teacher wants to schedule an appointment, they simply click on one of the boxes and you'll see this box pops up that just says book an appointment. We do have it set that it's only available to Norman Public Schools logins. And so it will actually already have your name in parentheses next to the slot that you're scheduling. And then all you have to do is click save. And that appointment is scheduled. It's very easy. And then on the next slide, you'll see this is what it looks like once that appointment is scheduled. That blue box is that teacher's personal calendar. And it's nice too, because if you are scheduling and you have other things on your calendar, the events on your calendar would be overlaid on top of those appointment blocks, which is helpful so that you can see if you're scheduling something that conflicts with something else that you're doing. So this is what the librarian sees, and Chloe's going to click on this link that actually goes to a day in February of 2020, back before when all things were normal. And there were so many things going on. So we just wanted to show you this so that you can see how sometimes the calendars can get messy. Mm-hmm. And so we take advantage of the color features where each calendar has an individual color. The funny thing about that though is that I might have different colors associated with my calendar, and then I look at Chloe's calendar and I'm like, what is that? Wait a minute, I'm confused. And then you can also view only one calendar at a time. So you can uncheck those boxes so you can just see specific calendars. So, Chloe has unchecked everything except for her particular calendar, her individual calendar. And so you can do things to make it easier to view everything on your calendar. But we have had great success with using appointment slots. It's really easy for teachers to use. Google doesn't really mess up. If you schedule an appointment, it's scheduled. The only thing that does happen occasionally is you can go back and schedule appointments from the past. And occasionally that happens where a teacher will think that they're scheduling something in the future, but they actually are in the past. I wish it wouldn't let them schedule things in the past, but it does. But we've had great success with Google Calendar. It really helps us to stay organized and on track with everything that we're doing when we're so busy.
Okay, so the next tool that we're going to talk about is Google Slides, which we mostly use to deliver information. So we use it for lesson delivery and structure, tutorials on our website, book promotion, and of course, professional presentations. So here are some examples. This one is for book promotion. So this is something that we started during COVID, but we plan to continue in a post-COVID world. So they're digital book displays. And we started this because kids couldn't come into the library and browse the way that they used to be able to. So we included things like a picture of the cover, the spine of the book, and the first page. So that way, since they couldn't come in and actually look at the book, they could get a feel for how long the book is and if it's on par with what they're looking for. In the future, I think we're just going to have a picture of the cover since students can come in and grab the book and look at it now. But then we had a little summary and then a link to place a hold from our physical catalog, or if the book was available on Sora, which is what we use for ebooks here at Norman Public Schools, there's a link to it there as well. And we had them categorized by romance, sci-fi, so different genres, and then things like Sequoia or LGBT graphic novels, those types of things. And then we embedded them into our website, which I will show you here. One benefit of using Google Sites and Google Slides together is that it embeds so nicely. So if it'll load here for me, you can see we have them all embedded here on our website: fantasy, mystery, thriller, Sequoia, romance, science fiction, read with pride, realistic fiction, all these types of things. And you can actually just click through without even leaving the website. You can make it bigger, or you could just view it on the website if you have really good eyes. But here's an example of one of the ones where it says check out on Sora. So you could click that and it would take you to Sora as well. So we started these last year. We plan on continuing to utilize them. They were really popular with our teachers as a way for kids to kind of get an idea of books they're interested in, even before coming to the library, once we were able to have kiddos come here. So it's definitely something that we plan on continuing to do, just kind of tweaking a bit as we go. So that's one way that we use Google Slides. We also have a library TV in our library behind the circulation desk, where we like airplay a slideshow up there that we kind of change every month. So we have some slides that stay the same, like this one about, need help finding a book, ask a librarian. But then we have ones that sort of rotate throughout, and some of them are sort of the same kind of digital displays and also promotions. So I'll show you some examples here. This is one that we did for Asian American Heritage Month. So we've got, a picture of one of the books and a description. The next one, we did a little online program. May is Get Caught Reading Month. And so we had students, they could scan the QR code to go to our Instagram, and they could tag us from there in any pictures of them reading. We have lots of images from Sora. So if your school uses Sora, they have tons of marketing materials that are free to utilize, that are beautiful and really easy to use in different ways. We use them on social media, on slides, on our website. And this is an example of that as well. This one was for foster care awareness. It's also a Sequoia book. We had a little scan to check out the ebook or audiobook for Sora, QR code there. And then we like to have slides for all of us that work in the library on what we're currently reading. We try to keep these up to date, but sometimes it's hard when you read a lot of books. But that's a good conversation starter for kiddos, just to see what we're reading and have those conversations. And then we, of course, use slides for lesson delivery and just for structuring the lesson throughout a class period. So, sometimes it's for delivering information. We might be presenting new content to students, but sometimes we use slides just to have like this is what you need to be doing, at this given time, this day during the guided inquiry process or whatever. So we use it for structuring and also content delivery. So here are some examples of slides that we've done in the past. This one was a presentation about presenting. So presentation tips for success that we did for some students. Generating research questions. And then like this one is about evaluating web sources. This one is based on civic online reasoning out of Stanford. We've got one about like maker tools when we're doing a creation project. And then what we'll do is we'll take our slideshows and we will add additional information to them so that students who are absent or who need to refer back to them are able to see them on our website. And we call those tutorials. So search term strategies, this is one that started as a presentation that we did. And then we embedded some extra videos for students who maybe were gone and then put it on our website. Same with Noodle Tools. Noodle Tools is a really awesome research tool that we use here at Norman Public Schools. And so this one has screenshots and videos on how to do different things that the students might need to refer back to, because, we'll present the information and then they might, come back after the weekend and be like, oh, I don't remember how to do that. And they can always go back and find it on here.
So we also use Google Forms very frequently in our library to collect information from our stakeholders. So we'll talk about some of those specific forms that we use. So we use a Google form for students to sign into our space. So we have QR codes around the library so students can scan with a smartphone that will take them to this Google form and they can sign in. And it just asks the basic questions of, why are you here? What grade are you in? What's your ID number? What teacher sent you, et cetera. And then, if students don't have a smartphone, they can come to the circulation desk and we can sign them in, manually. But it's just a good way to keep track of information so that, if teachers come in and ask, did so-and-so make it to the library? Were they there? We can check our form and also just, it's kind of statistics and like how many visitors do we have and those kinds of things. So we use this frequently. Another example of a form that we use is the one you see here for formative assessment. We use forms to gather information from students, specifically during the research process. It can be just a quick check-in, that formative assessment of, how's it going? Where are you in the process? What do you need help with? Those kinds of things. And the nice thing about Google Forms is that, about all of the Google products is the collaborative feature. So, we can create this form, teachers can embed it on Canvas, which is what we use in Norman for our learning management system, but they are integrated so easily, and then we can all have access to the results of the form. And so then we can collaborate, and we can, talk about like who contacted this student and those kinds of things. So it can really provide that opportunity for collaboration and feedback to students in a digital way. We also use Google Forms for exit tickets. So just super quick and easy. What went great today? What do you need help with tomorrow? Those kinds of questions, and getting that feedback from students so that we can better support them, the following day when they come back. We also use a Google form for book recommendations. So we started this during COVID, that first, that last 9 weeks of school last year when we were completely shut down. And basically it was like Reader's Advisory, but in a digital format. And so we just asked basic questions from students, the same questions that we would ask if they were standing next to us in the stacks. What books or authors have you enjoyed in the past? What books don't you like? What are you in the mood to read? And lots of check boxes for like what genres you're interested in. And, do you want a book with a boy main character or a girl main character, or it doesn't matter to you? And then we would ask if they wanted an ebook or an audiobook, or a physical book, or any format. And then we had also information about if they were going to need curbside to pick up the book, or if they needed help accessing Sora to access those ebooks and audiobooks. So we had great success with this book recommendation form, and it's been so fun to do. And Chloe's going to talk more about it when we get to the sheets, and when we can see the results of those form submissions. This is something that we are definitely continuing post-COVID, because we have, a lot of students who are more comfortable filling out a form, putting it, typing it in, than having an actual conversation with an adult. And, that's obviously we'd prefer to have the personal conversations, but some students are just more comfortable doing it this way. And so we want to make this available to our students so that we can still provide them with that service, in whatever way makes them the most comfortable. We also use Google Forms to schedule appointments in our makerspace. So this is something that we did before COVID. We have a separate room that is our makerspace, and we have some audio recording equipment. So obviously, if a student wants to use the audio recording equipment, they need to schedule that space so that no one else is in there. So they have a quiet space to record. Or, we use it when a student might need extra help using a tool. Maybe they're using something they've never used before, and they need one of us to work with them. Or maybe it's a tool that requires supervision, like we have a wood burning kit. And we require, obviously, an adult to be in the space when they're burning wood. Imagine that. And so this is just a form that we use. We have QR codes, and it's on our website so students can make appointments to use our space. We use Google Forms to collect submissions for events. So our school hosts a creativity and learning showcase at the end of every semester. And this is an opportunity for students to show off the work that they've done that is maybe a little more on the creative side, and to show what they've learned through guided inquiry units or any kind of project that they've done. And so teachers submit student work for the showcase. And so we use a Google form for teachers to do that. We also use Google Forms to collect information for our teacher read posters. So every year we do this in August when teachers come back. And then we print these posters that they can put outside their rooms that say what they're reading. We kind of try to change it up each year. This is one of our reading posters from this year. So what's your favorite book? What are you currently reading? And then teachers can either get a new poster printed when they read a new book, or they can just stick an index card in there. And so that's a fun thing. And a Google form is a great way to collect that information in a usable format. And the funny thing is we actually use Microsoft Publisher to create the posters because we use mail merge to get the content from the spreadsheet into the poster. And so, but that's something that we've done for years, and Google Forms are just a great way to keep that information. And especially now that you can even have users submit photos and files in Google Forms. And so that is helpful because they can just submit their image with their other information.
So we also use Google Sheets. Of course, we use it to, look at responses to all of those forms that Martha talked about, and to, do work from there. We use it to create a research calendar for the school, to manage our budget, for data collection, all those types of things. So some examples here. This is how we use it for our budget. So each school year, you can see down here at the bottom, we make a copy. So that way we can go back and see, have we used this vendor before? How much do we normally spend on this? Those types of things. It's kind of cool, actually. They apparently have been using Sheets since like 2011. So we have data going back 10 years, which is pretty cool to look at, especially if you're a data nerd like me. But we have things like, when we submitted the PO request, once we have the PO, we can keep that in there, what vendor we're using, which like category it's coming out of. And then once we put in like the deductions, it'll calculate how much we have left, which makes it really easy to manage the budget, especially when you're working with two people. So that way we can see like who has done what. But it's also just would be really helpful even if you're by yourself, because you can refer back to it and just keep track of everything, because you're probably not placing all your orders at once. So Google Sheets is awesome for that. We also use it to keep track of our makerspace inventory. So we have a lot of, tools that just stay in our makerspace, but we have a lot of things that are consumable. So we've got, like ink for the poster printer, or like filament, or just like paint and clay, and things that students use frequently that we run out of. And so it's really helpful to have, how much we have in there for when we do our supply order, since we only really do that once a year. It's also helpful to have where stuff is. So if somebody's like, well, where did you put the Dremel tool? Oh, it's in the lockers. So we know where we have it, which is really helpful. We try to keep this pretty up to date. I normally will do like one at the beginning of the year. And then I try to go in after we have like big projects, but sometimes there's not time. So sometimes it's not totally accurate, but we do try to keep it pretty up to date. We use it to keep track of committee books that we received. So currently I'm on the Sequoia committee, and a benefit of being on the Sequoia committee, if you are interested, is that you get lots of books for your library. This one, I can keep track of the title, the author, how much the book was, and when I received it, and then any notes for, why we added it to the collection or things like that come in here, and we can keep track of how much basically money the books would have cost if we bought them, which is really awesome for, promoting your library and things. So yeah, if you want to be on Sequoia committee, it's a great way to get books for your library. And this is a great way to keep track of what you've gotten. We also used it to create a research calendar. We got this idea a couple years ago because we realized that our freshmen were doing 3 research units at once in different subject areas. And that was a really high cognitive load for those kiddos, but because we're a pretty big school, and so, the science teachers didn't necessarily know that the English teachers and the Oklahoma history or whatever teachers were all doing the same, doing a unit at the same time. And so we started creating this not only to help us plan for the future, but also so that we could share it with teachers, so that if they were more flexible on when they did their unit, it could maybe be shifted so that there's not such a high cognitive load on those kiddos. So here's an example of one. This was from a couple of years ago, and during COVID, it kind of fell off, but we do plan on doing it in the future. We collected data by sending out a Google form to our teachers to find out when and if they planned on doing any sort of research, and kind of when they thought they would do it. And we kind of filled it in tentatively. And then once we started putting dates actually on the calendar, we would update it as we went. And we could also look back and be like, hey, are you planning on doing this unit that you did last year? So it was also helpful for us to see what units were done as well.
We also color coded it by grade level.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that was helpful too.
Yeah, so we color coded it by grade level, and then obviously we had the different subject areas on the side, and then we had kind of what the topics were. And of course, we use Google Sheets to manage responses to forms. So this is the book recommendation form that Martha talked about. So you can see some of the questions she mentioned on the side, but we like to add our own lines to the form so that we can work on them actively together. So we added the one for book recommendations. So as we were coming up with recommendations, we would put them in here, which is really helpful because if you have a student who requests, something very similar to another student, you can go back and kind of find books that you already recommended. Because there are multiple of us in the library, we had library staff working on suggestions so that we weren't, doing double the work. And then we kept track of when we emailed the student or the staff member that requested it. So that way it was just really easy for us to keep track of where we were in the process, who was working on it, and to just have a history of what we put for various students. We also use it to manage library sign-in. So again, it has all the data that we collected from the form, but we added our own notes section. So this is really helpful for keeping track of those kids who are always in the library, whether they're supposed to be in there or not. So that way, if it's a concurrent kiddo and we know they're supposed to be in there, now we know who they are. We don't need to talk to them every single day. And they're like, oh my gosh, you know who I am. So we can keep track of them that way. Or if they're a kiddo who says they're concurrent, but really they're being counted absent from their second hour, we can go in and know that, oh, actually you need to go to class. So this is really helpful. We have 2,100 kids. We know a lot of names, but not all of them. And so this helps us kind of keep track of who's in the library at any given time. Also, if it's, Martha that's been talking to them, I might not know who they are. So it's helpful for us to be able to see who everybody has talked to.
So another one of the Google apps that we use frequently is Google Keep. And we use Keep to, take notes, make lists, gather our thoughts, and share with our colleagues. So this is a screenshot of Chloe's Keep, actually. And it's just a great way to manage thoughts and to just jot things down. I think of it as sticky notes. And, in the past, I might have had, a dozen sticky notes around my computer monitor. But, now with laptops, and it's not as easy to just have sticky notes everywhere. And so Google Keep is a great way to keep track of information. So we keep track of things like scheduling. So when we're working with a team and we're collaborating and getting ready to schedule classes in the library, we might use Keep to kind of take notes about that. We might use Keep to, keep a list of titles that we want to add to Sora. I see one that is just notes from a reflection meeting that we had at the end of a guided inquiry unit with our world history team. So what did we all think about how things went and what would we do differently? We had a student recently coming in asking for help with his research project and he couldn't find sources. And so we started kind of doing some searching to try to help find sources, and we put those links into Google Keep so that when he came back, we would have those handy. So it's just a great way to kind of make lists and keep track. And I love that you can share the notes with each other, with your colleagues, so that once again, that collaborative feature is so helpful. We also use Keep to archive student projects. So when we do specifically research units, like guided inquiry units that end with a creative product, we like to take pictures. And then in the guided inquiry process, students are writing their own research question. And if I'm going to talk about a product a student has created in the past, I like to know their research question because I think it makes the product more meaningful and more impactful. And so this is just a great way to keep track of, here's the product and here's the student question. We also like to share past student products when we're introducing the create process to current students, so that they can see examples of the kinds of products that students have done in the past. And so we use Google Keep to kind of keep track of that and keep that in one place, so it's easy to locate when we need it. So Google Docs, of course, we use Docs frequently for planning and collaborating. We use them a lot with students for different kinds of templates and different graphic organizers and things like that. So here's an example of a unit or lesson design. So this is specifically for guided inquiry. This was a unit on algorithms with I believe Algebra 2. And so these are just the notes. And you know, the beautiful thing about Google is the collaborative feature. I keep saying that. But especially during COVID, you know, we can all be in different locations and we can be, you know, collaborating in real time on a document. And it's so helpful. You know, even if you're in a Zoom meeting with people, you can be collaborating on a document together. And it just is such a helpful feature to be able to really make it a meaningful collaboration. We use Google Docs to create graphic organizers to help keep students engaged. So this is an example of one that we used during some kind of book talk or book tasting that we did. And it was just a graphic organizer for students to be able to keep track of the titles of the books that we talked about and what they were about and if they were interested in, you know, reading that book or not. And just an engagement tool so that students have something to kind of, you know, help them focus on listening when we're presenting whatever it is we're presenting. So we also use Google Docs during research units. So when we do research units, you know, students oftentimes have lots of different documents. Lots of things like inquiry journals and inquiry logs and their notes that they're taking and all of those kinds of things. And so we have begun using Google Docs to put all of that together. So we use something called a hyperdoc, and it sounds super complicated and complex, but really all it is a Google Doc that has hyperlinks to other parts of the Google Doc in it, if that makes sense. So you would always have a table of contents. So this is a guided inquiry unit. And so let's say it's, you know, Explore Day 1. You can literally click on that linked title in the table of contents and it will take you to that section of the document. So then everything the student is doing for that particular research unit is all in one document. And so it's really, really helpful, especially when you're collaborating. So we want, you know, the classroom teachers, the librarians, you know, any other members of the learning team to all be able to interact with this document and with the students' work and progress. And so by using a hyperdoc, we can all have access to it. It's all in one place. It's really easy to locate. And to find all the information that this student is entering into those documents. And so it's something that we've had a lot of success with our students, especially when we're doing like longer research units that might be over, you know, weeks of time.
And then we use Google Sites to host our virtual library learning commons. So we kind of got a little view of it earlier when we were looking at the digital displays, but I'm just going to take you on a quick tour. The benefits of using Google Sites are, there's a few of them. For one, it's very easy to use. You don't need to have coding experience. It looks so nice and modern without having to have any of that sort of web design background. It also is free, like all of the Google sites. And we know, like at least in our district and probably others, some of the websites that maybe could make nice looking websites, but they're for free, a lot of them are blocked. And Google Sites is pretty much never blocked anywhere. So that's another benefit as well. I'll point out that the URL, because we don't pay for it, is, you know, pretty long, pretty clunky. But you can do a couple different things. For one, we have a tiny URL set up. So it's like tinyurl.com/highsidelib. That's on our posters. But really the way that our kids access our library the most is just by Googling Norman High Library, and it's the first thing that pops up. So another benefit to using Google Sites is that the search engine optimization for Google is like through the roof because it's one of their own products and they like to promote their own products. So it's really nice to be able to just Google our website and it'd be the first one that comes up. So this is what our website kind of looks like. Let me kind of move this over a second. Sorry. On our front page, we have like links to ebooks and audiobooks, some of those forms that we talked about, like the digital displays, book recommendation form, suggest a purchase, a link to our catalog. If you scroll down, we've got like follow us on social media, how to contact us. We've got like our embedded Facebook feed over here. We also, this side kind of fluctuates and changes throughout the year. Right now we have audio sync because that's what's going on over the summer. But during the school year, we might have information about like Cookies and Books, our book club or maker club and stuff like that, whatever is kind of current. So it's kind of always rotating through on that side. We have our mission statement and stuff like that on here as well. We also have, if you click this, you can go down and read about the librarians. We have our annual report embedded. So anytime admin or anybody wants to refer back to our annual report, it's on there, it's public, it's easy to view. We have our research page where we have links to all of the databases that we have through Norman Public Schools and the login information for students. That is view only by Norman Public Schools emails. So like if one of you wanted to click on that, you wouldn't have access to it, but our students do. And then we've got like just general research websites that students have access to for free. And then like other libraries and tools, copyright free images, stuff like that. And then we have like our citation guide, which again is about Noodle tools because that's the tool that we use here at Norman Public Schools. But we also have links to things like Purdue OWL and MLA.org. And then we have a tutorials page where we have videos embedded. Again, it's so nice. It's another benefit of Google Sites is that embedding videos from YouTube is beautiful. Like it looks so nice. You don't have to click out of anything. So some of these are videos that we've made about how to use our tools, but then some of them are also just videos like EBSCO made these or Gail made them. And so they can refer to those as well. So that's really helpful to have that all in one place. Same kind of with the create page. We have links to various tools. We have some of those like slideshow tutorials embedded here that you can click on and find out more about each of these tools if students wanted to with videos and things, or they can just go to the tutorials page. And again, view some of those slideshows or videos that are embedded on here as well. We have our read page, where we have, again, a lot of those same links from the beginning, but also things like Novelist and Curbside, which hopefully won't be, necessarily on there next year, but getting started with Sora, that type of information. If they need help finding their next read, we have like all sorts of different, websites and things, awards lists that are relevant to our students on here. A video on how to use the library catalog. And then we have a YouTube channel where we do book talks. And so that's, embedded on here as well. And then, of course, those digital book displays we looked at earlier. The thing that we use probably the most is this class content page, because even though we have the research and the create pages, which are helpful, a lot of times we will distill down the information that students need into pathfinders for each unit. So let's look at an example unit here. This one was for English 2. So we've got like links to Noodle tools, searching the catalog, but then we went through our databases and said, these are the ones that have information about your topic. And so these are the ones that we have that we want you to access for this project. And so those are on here so they don't have to dig through the entire research page. Again, any of those slideshows that we went over in class are then turned into tutorials linked on here. So you can kind of like click through and see there's screenshots and videos all within this for students to refer back to at any given time. Again, a benefit of using all Google products is that it embeds so beautifully, so nicely. If you were going to use like a PowerPoint, it might not embed like so amazingly. Also, if you update any of these slideshows, it updates on the website too. You don't have to go back and like re-embed it. It's live, so it updates it. So that's kind of what that looks like. And we do that for each, unit. We hide the ones that aren't currently going on. So those are just the last 2 that we did. We have a teacher center where we have things like tech tools, copyright. Canvas is our learning management system. And so we have a whole lot of resources on how to utilize Canvas from when we were collaborating with our innovative learning coach at the beginning of the year to get teachers trained. And so there's all sorts of information on here for teachers to refer back to. And then we have a link back to the Norman High website as well. So that's what our website looks like. Skip the slide.
So one thing that we kind of had to grapple with this year was with the introduction of a learning management system, which in Norman we had not had prior to this year, we really had to think about how are we going to share content with our students in particular. Are we going to use Canvas to share that information? Are we going to use our website that we've always used to share that information? So we kind of had to like step back and think about, access and what that looks like for our students and teachers. And ultimately, we decided to really continue focusing on our website like we have been. I think our students are very used to starting on the library website when they're doing research. But we did also create modules in Canvas that we could then put in the Commons and share out to our teachers for them to add to their courses. So things about like all of the, if your kids need to find a book to read, here's the books module that has, information about using the library catalog, how to do curbside pickup, the digital displays, the YouTube channel, all of those kinds of things in a module that teachers could easily put into any course. And then we did the same thing for research. So very general, we just basically took those pages from our website and turned them into Canvas pages. Ultimately, we decided that the more places we could put things, the better. You can't have it out there too much. And so that was kind of like our philosophy for the year is where can we share it so that students can easily have access to it. And so I'm sure there are probably others who are kind of dealing with those same issues of how do we share information now that we have learning management systems that we didn't previously have. And so we ultimately decided to kind of use both. We don't actually have a library Canvas page that all of our students are members or students in because that seemed pretty overwhelming with 2,100 students. And didn't necessarily seem like the best way to share that information. Also, Canvas is not nearly as pretty as Google Sites. And so, we like the visually appealing aspect of Google Sites, in sharing information with students. Do you have something else to add about that, Chloe?
No, I mean, I think you pretty much covered it. That was pretty much our decision-making process and kind of why we ended up, because, we'll always have the library website moving forward as well. I mean, I think Canvas is going to stick around for a while, but, learning management systems may or may not change, but we'll always have a library website. And so if our kids are used to utilizing that, it, I think, is helpful. And if they do plan on going to college or even just using the public library websites, they'll be used to library websites as well. So that is what we have for you guys. Again, we have this bit.ly here that you can click on to refer back to any of the things that we talked about. We have our email addresses here as well, and that tiny URL to our library website. We're happy to share anything with you guys. So just, shoot us an email, go to the bit.ly, whatever. And we're happy to share, copies of things if you need them too. So thank you.